How do you choose the right mode of transportation? That's the focus of today's video. Enjoy. What's up, guys? I'm Fabio Salas, and welcome to the Living Mad channel, where we talk all about the American dream. So today, I want to talk to you about vehicles. More specifically, I want to talk to you about your mode of transportation, how you choose to get around. As we talk about savings, investing, and growing your net worth, the money that you spend on vehicles, the money that you spend on transportation, getting to and from work, going to do your chores, buy groceries, whatever it may be, it's a huge part of your monthly expenses. So what you choose to do, what you choose to spend your money on in regards to transportation is a big part of it. And I think it's important that we talk about it. So there's three things or three questions that I want to focus on today, that I think if you answer these three questions, you can be better informed and make wiser decisions about how you're going to spend your money with vehicles, with transportation. So the first question is, what are your needs? What do I mean by that? If you are a 20-year-old single person, no kids, no family members living with you, just you alone, maybe you don't need a sedan. Maybe you don't need an SUV. You don't need a van. Maybe you're fine just having a small little vehicle that is economical on gas, maybe doesn't have a whole lot of space, maybe doesn't have a huge trunk, but provides just the basic needs for you. Maybe you're a family person, family guy. You're married, got 2 or 3 children, you're gonna need something bigger. You got 3 or more children, maybe you need an SUV. Maybe you need a minivan, maybe you need a van. One of the guys I work with, he's got 7 children. They need a lot of space to carry their children around. So what are your needs? Based off of your needs, you have different options. Sometimes we get bogged down thinking we need these big fancy cars or big SUVs. SUVs are all the rage nowadays, especially crossovers. But what's the purpose of them? Other than looking fancy, other than being the cool guy on the block. If you don't really need a pickup truck, if you're not, hauling a lot of stuff and helping people move all the time, do you really need a pickup truck? Because pickup trucks are nice, they're awesome vehicles, but they're also very expensive. They eat up a lot of gas, the insurance on them is pretty high, and if you buy a new truck, they can be pretty pricey nowadays. I think a basic truck like an F-150 is probably north of 35 grand. Now you start adding in options, leather seats, navigation, all that stuff, you can quickly get up in the mid-40s, $50,000 for a pickup truck that you may not necessarily need. You could just get by with a small sedan. So the first thing is, again, figuring out your needs. I'll give you a little personal story of mine just to kind of highlight the way that I've thought about it throughout the years. So when I first joined the Marine Corps, I was 19 years old, got married shortly after. We lived in South Carolina, a small town. I didn't have a lot of money. I knew that I didn't want to finance a car. It's one of the few things I knew back then about finances, is I didn't want to finance a car because I wasn't making a lot of money and I didn't want to start accruing debt right away. So I saved up a little bit of money. I bought a Ford Escort. Some of you might remember that. I don't even think they make them anymore. They probably went out a long time ago. But I bought one for, I think it was about 2,500 bucks. So not a whole lot of money, although this was back in 2000, so a little bit more than it is today, but still not a lot of money. I bought that and just drove it to and from work for chores, things like that. But it didn't last me very long because being a cheap car came with a lot of problems. So it lasted about 6 months. 6 months into it, it broke down, took it to a shop to get it checked out. Turns out that it cost more to fix the car than the car was worth. Knowing that it would be stupid to dump more money into a car that wasn't worth that much, I junked it. I think I got a couple $100 for it. Maybe like, I don't know, 100 or 200 bucks. I didn't get a whole lot, but I junked it and started thinking about, okay, what are my options now? So as I started thinking about my options, I thought back to the same thing I thought before. I don't want to finance a car. I don't want to take on loans and debt that I don't necessarily need. I wasn't making a whole lot of money. So what I did is, for about 9, almost 10 months, I rode a bicycle to work. Now fortunately back then I didn't live too far away from work. I think it was about 9 miles away, just a little over 9 miles. I was already a Marine at the time, so 3 times a week I would ride the bike to work. I would have to exercise with my Marines. then in the evening, ride back home. So it's definitely a lot of physical stress. But the plus side is I got in great shape over that time, because not only was I having to do the exercises with my Marines, but I was also having to ride the bike back and forth. My wife, fortunately, her job was pretty close. She was probably within a couple miles, maybe 2 to 3 miles from the house. So she was able to ride the bus, the local bus, to get to and from. And that's something that a lot of people don't consider. Major cities, not even major cities, small towns like where I'm at now is not a very big city. They do have public transportation. And that's a great way to save money. Besides having to pay a car payment, pay gas, maintenance, insurance, all of that stuff can add up real quick. I know here where I'm at now, at the University of Illinois, you can get a bus pass for, I think it's $84 for the entire year. If you work at the University of Illinois, you can ride the buses for free. So you didn't even have to pay for transportation. So sometimes there's options, but not too many people here in the US consider those options because everybody feels the need to have their own personal mode of transportation. So I did that for about 9 or 10 months while saving up some money with the goal of buying myself another car. So like I said, I did that for about 9 months, and then I had saved up just a little under $1,000. I think I had about 800 bucks. Not really enough to buy another car. I knew that 2,500 bucks wasn't gonna get me a great car just like it did in the first time. So what I ended up doing is I bought a moped. Never in my life did I think that I would drive a moped. But actually driving that moped is what got me into motorcycles. So fast forward a few years later, I bought my first motorcycle ever. Bought that one for like 600 bucks. And I've been riding motorcycles ever since. It's become one of my absolute favorite passions. But not to digress, I bought this moped and I think it got like 60 miles to the gallon. It was insane, probably more. Wasn't very fast. Top speed was, I think, 50 miles an hour. So it was very slow, but it got the job done. I didn't have to take a highway to get to work, so that kind of made it easier. And even if there was a highway, I would have just stayed off the highway and taken local roads to get to work. Bought it cash, didn't have a car payment, and I used that for almost a year to get to and from work until I bought a car. Due to two, I got promoted twice, and that kind of helped me make a little bit more money, and I bought a car. Fast forward many years later, 2016, I was coming back from being stationed in Japan, and I decided, you know what, I've always wanted a Mustang. It's kind of a cliche, Marines love Mustangs. I've always wanted a Mustang. I know it's kind of like I guess it's the poor man's dream car. I can't afford a Lamborghini, so I get a Mustang. So I got this Mustang, single guy, thinking I don't need big car, I don't need anything big. Quickly did I realize I needed more than that because my son spends a lot of time with me. My girlfriend has a son, and whenever it was her and our kids, driving around the Mustang was not the most efficient, the most spacious, the most comfortable thing in the world. So I kept that car for about 10 months and traded in for this car. Now I will tell you, if you buy a car new, that's one of the things you got to consider. If you're going to get rid of it anytime soon, you're probably going to lose money on it. When I traded that car, I lost about $2,000 in the deal. Could have been worse. It helped that I got a really good deal on the Mustang, so it could have been worse. But that's why you should never buy a new car unless you're planning on keeping it long term. I had one new car before that I did keep long term. I bought in 2002 and I kept that until 2008, paid it off in 2 years. Then I gave it to my mother and she kept it till 2015. So the car, we definitely got our money's worth for that car. 13 years. But unless you're planning on keeping it long term, you really shouldn't buy new cars because they lose a lot of value right away. So again, think about your needs. I kind of assessed my needs throughout the years. I've only owned 3 cars that I had car payments on, but I paid them off very quickly. This car I bought had car payments on it, paid it off in just a little over 2 years because I know that I don't want car payments. For me to do that, I couldn't buy an expensive car. So this car I got pretty cheap. I think it was just under $24,000. I could have bought cheaper, but I decided, you know what? I want to spoil myself a little bit and got a somewhat nicer car. But, so the first thing is, what are your needs? The second thing that is really important is how much money do you make? If you're making $30,000 a year and you buy a $24,000 car, that's probably going to put you in a bind. Your car payments are going to be pretty high. Your insurance is going to be high. So many expenses that you don't really need when you're making $30,000-$40,000 a year. So you can use different formulas, you can use different guidelines, but a lot of it just comes down to, again, what are your needs and how much are you willing to spend? I would say if you're making 40 grand a year, maybe you should be looking at cars around, in today's market, maybe $7,000-$8,000. Now I know that's not the most luxurious car, it's not the best looking car, and for a lot of people that's a big deal. But again, if you want to be able to save, if you want to be able to invest, if you want to grow your net worth over the long term, you really have to start making some financial decisions that support that. And buying an expensive car when you don't make a whole lot of money, it's really going to put a dent in your pocket, and it's not going to help you in the long term. So how much money you make is a huge factor. And really, I say it's a huge factor and it seems like common sense, but a lot of people just don't take that into account. They think $24,000, not that big a deal, right? Not that much money. But again, if you're only making $30,000, $40,000 a year, that's half of a yearly income for one car. Nobody should spend that much on a car. If I was making $1 million a year, I would not spend $500,000 on a car. So that for me is a huge factor. How much am I spending on my car relative to how much I actually earn in a year? The third thing that you need to answer for yourself is, what are your long-term savings and investing goals? Maybe you're 20 years old and your goal is to retire by the time you're 40. So you've got 20 years. You've got time to invest, you've got time to save. But what if you're 55 and you want to retire by 65? Now you've only got 10 years. Depending on how much money you've saved up until that point, if you have a pension, if you have rental property, depending on your situation, your net worth at the time, that can be a drastically different situation. Because if you're 20, your goal is 40, and you don't make it by 40 for whatever reason, well then you've still got time. You've got many more working years ahead of you. But if you're 55, trying to retire at 65, and you don't make it at 65, now you're in a situation where you're in your golden years, and you're having to keep working just because you can't afford to retire. So what are your long-term goals? And really, that's, out of the three questions, I would say that's the most important one. Because if you don't think far enough ahead about what is it you want out of your life in the future, you can't start taking action today to make that happen. I know that for me, I want to be completely financially independent by the time I'm 50. I'm 39 now, so it's 11 years from now. That gives me some time to build up my investments and everything else that I have to support my income on top of my military retirement that I'll have by that point. So I know what investments I need to make. I know how much income I need to generate, passive income I need to generate in order to support the lifestyle that I currently have, because I don't want my lifestyle to change. I don't want to have to, downgrade the house, the kind of house that I live in. I don't want to have to give up one of my passions, riding motorcycles. So I think about all this and I make investment and financial decisions today that help me propel that forward. So as of this year, I've raised my savings and investing goal to where I'm saving about 35% of my monthly paycheck. That may seem like a lot. I know a lot of gurus, financial advisors say save 10% of your monthly income or your yearly income, 10% of your income. And that's all fine and dandy if you've got a lot of other things that are helping you and your long-term goal is to retire at 65. But if you want to be able to give yourself some financial independence, maybe not necessarily retire, but financial independence before you're 65, you're gonna have to make some other decisions. You're gonna have to save way more than 10%, invest way more than 10% for the long term to make that happen. So sit down, figure out how old am I, by what age do I want to be financially free so that I can make decisions that have nothing to do with money, just about my own self-fulfillment and enjoyment. Write it all down, verbalize it to other people around you so that they can help hold you accountable, and start taking action today. Part of that is, how much money are you spending on your car? How much money are you spending on gas? How much money are you spending on insurance? Think about all these things, because little by little, month by month, year by year, they will all influence either positively or negatively the growth of your net worth. All right, guys, that's it for me today. Hopefully you got something out of this. Hopefully I can get you thinking about what you're doing with your money, how you're spending it on your vehicles, and help you think about the future and grow your net worth. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell right next to the subscribe button so you're notified when I upload a video. And I'll see you in the next video.